All right, here we are looking at Google Sheets, and Google Sheets gives you a lot of power to do different things with mathematics. Now, I know some of you might be thinking like, well, I don't like math. Then this is the perfect tool for you because you don't actually have to do math. You let the computer do the math for you. So we'll look at some of the things that we're going to do for project 1 right here. So a couple things. I've named this test sheet. And some vocabulary here is that when we talk about a sheet, technically the term for everything in here is called a workbook, but we will refer to it as a sheet. I could add different sheets down here by duplicating this one or just pressing this plus button, plus button. And we could talk about it as a different sheet or a different tab. We don't have to be too picky. They're kind of interchangeable. Some other terminology to know is that these little spaces right here that I type in and things like that, they're called cells. And we name cells in a specific way. We name it by its column and then its row. So right now I have selected B3, and you could see that it helps me out by showing that I'm in D and 6. So this one is D6, this one is B9, and C5. So that's kind of helpful right there. And so let's do a few things here. I'm going to say product, and I'm going to say category 1, category 2, category 3. And you would do something similar, but you would actually type in what's going to be here. I'm going to show you a little trick, especially when dealing with numbers. If I want them to increment, like maybe I'm doing something with days of the week or calendar or anything like that, I could use what's called this fill handle right here. And that's this little square right here on the bottom right. And when I put my mouse over it, I get a mini crosshair right here. So if I click, and I'm holding down right now, and if I just drag, it's going to update automatically. It realizes, okay, let's increment by 1. So I could do the same thing over here. I could say product 1, product 2. I could go boom, and we could go down to 13. So that's nice. I'm going to select this first row right here, and I'm going to make it bold. And I'm going to center align it. Now, something different between this and like Word is that in a cell you have your horizontal alignment, but you also have your vertical alignment because a cell is a box. And I'm just going to resize this one a little bit like this. And so you'll see right now the vertical alignment is that it's at the bottom, and that kind of shows. But I could also make this in the center or in the top as well. So some different things like that. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to take this and I am going to bold it as well. So that's pretty cool right there. Just some different things that we could do for formatting. I am next going to show you some other thing that you could do, especially when you get into larger spreadsheets. This is going to be helpful by freezing rows and columns. So right now you see that it kind of broke right here because I froze the first row and the first column. Now what that means is that this frozen stuff will always appear on my sheet. So right now, even if I'm scrolling down to further rows, row 1 is always here. Okay, and if I scroll to the right to further columns, column A is always there. So it's helpful when, let's say I have a bunch of categories and I'm looking at the stuff over here to be able to see which product it goes to. Or if I'm scrolling down to see which category this product is in. So that's pretty helpful right there. Okay, some things that we're going to do is I'm just going to toss in some numbers. Let's say we're doing something by month, and let's say these things cost different amounts. Ooh, that's expensive. We'll change that to 43. Okay, so that's how much the monthly cost is, and let's say they all require to be 12 months. Now I'm going to use that skinny fill handle again, And because it saw that we're doing 12, 12, 12, it realized, oh, we don't want to increment, so we will just keep it as 12. So it kept it as the same value there, which was nice. Okay, in category 3, I'm going to do some math. If this is $12 per month and I have to do it for 12 months, then the math is that I have to multiply these together. But remember, we talked about we're not going to do math. We're not going to actually do it. We're going to let the computer do it for us. We just have to tell it what we want it to do. Now, I could type 12 times 12, and maybe I know that as 144, and I could type that in there. But let's say I got a discount and it's 11. This would still say 144. Okay. I could do something with formulas, and if I click this button over here, there's a bunch of different formulas right here, some of the basics, but it does have even more advanced ones. But I could also do my basic operators like plus, times, minus, divide, without using a special word or anything like that. To start a formula, we do need to start with the equal sign. Now, I don't want to multiply 11 times 12 because if that value changes, this would not change. We think of these cells as variables. I want to multiply the two cells together. Whatever we put inside, just that's what the answer should be, so that we should change these. So thinking about math and variables. So we multiply the name of this cell. If you remember this cell right here, it's in column B and it's in cell 2 or row 2, so it's called B2 times, and you see that it has this dashed line around it letting me know that's the cell I'm referring to. I could also just click the other cell that I want and enter. I'm going to use my skinny fill right here, and you'll notice as I did that, this number right here, as I went down a row, it changed. It just incremented by 1. What do you think would happen if I went to the right? Well, let's see. If I copied this to the right, the column name incremented by 1. So from B2 to C2, it went from C2 times D2. So that's pretty cool. Right there. I didn't have to do any math, and now if I update this automatically changes as well. So let's say there's some hidden fees in here. These all have some extra costs behind them. Well, if I want to add these things right here, I could use a formula, I could say equals, and I could just add the two. But sometimes I need to add multiple numbers, and maybe I wanted to add all of these numbers right here from D2 to D14. Well, if I wanted to just use the plus button, I would have to do D2 plus D3 plus D4 plus, and so on and so forth. I could use sum, which is the answer to an addition problem. And when I use these formulas, it does give me some examples of how they should be used right here. And this right here, this colon right here says through. Basically, this is saying A2 through A100. So I could do something like D2 through D14. Okay, and that would add all of these numbers together. Look how quickly it did that. It would take me a long time to do that. Okay, but I don't need to use the sum in this case because I am just adding two numbers. So it's going to be equal to D2 plus E2. Boom. And we will do our skinny fill, copy it down right here, and voila, like magic, right? All right, let's do a couple other things to make this look nice. I do want to take these cells that I'm working on right here. I'm going to format, and I'm going to use this alternating colors format. And when I do that, you see this, it got a header, so it realized this is the headings right here, so it gave it kind of a darker background, and then we just have ever so lightly changing colors right here so that it's easier to identify which cell we're in, which row we're in, things like that. So it just makes it a bit more visually appealing, and I could change the different styles right here if I wanted different colors or not. So that's nice to have. Another thing that we're going to do though is we want to be able to easily identify which cells contain a formula. That is very helpful if you're sharing something that you made with someone else so that they know where to look for these cells. So I'm going to select these again, and I'm going to go to Format, Conditional Formatting, and this format cells, there's a lot of if statements, and basically an if statement is if this is true, do this, otherwise don't. And there's some things right here, but the one that I need is going to be a custom formula. And we're going to make this, see if this is equal to a custom formula. Remember that when I start a formula, I do need an equal sign. And the formula that we're going to use is called isFormula. So basically saying if this formula is a formula. But I need to say which cells I'm going to apply this to. It's going to be the same range right here. A1 to A1 to H14. And we'll do that right there. Click done, and voila, you'll see these ones are all formulas. The other ones are numbers directly. These are all formulas. So that's nice right there. Okay, well, a couple things is that I want to protect these cells that have formulas so that someone doesn't accidentally come in here and change these. So I have clicked and dragged down, and I'm going to hold Control and click and drag down as well. And that lets me select these cells plus these cells. So that little Control button allows you to add more to your selection. And we are going to go to Data, and we are going to go to Protected Sheets and Ranges. Okay, and we are going to set permissions right here. And I could say show a warning when editing this range so that if someone does try to edit it, it will warn them. And one thing I'm realizing is that I added that to my selection, but it only took that selection. So I'm going to do it one more time right here. I'm going to do this, and show a warning right here. Okay, so now we have that, and now I could say, oops. So now it's telling me, hey, you should not be changing this. So that's nice right there. It lets me know that's not something you want to delete right there. So we got most of that done. Now let's say the last thing is, oh, I like product 1 the most. Well, one thing I can do is I can insert a note right here. Now a note is different than a comment because a note is kind of in here. It's not something that can be resolved or anything like that. So I chose this because ... Okay, and we know that there's a note because of this little arrow right here, and if I hover over it, that note comes up. So that's going to be all the things that you will really need to be able to complete Google Sheets Project 1. You'll just have to do some research on what you want to find, what you're interested, what you want to compare.